back to On a Journey with Giselle. I am your host, Giselle, and I am so excited that you tuned back into the show. If you're new to the show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and like it. And then if you hear something in the show, go ahead and comment below a key point that you took away. We're back, and you know what? We're talking all things consistency because it's the new year, 2025, and we want to be consistent. We don't really want to just talk about it, but we really want to do it, and we want to walk it out. So today on the show, I no other person best to be on the show than my brother. Like, this is my brother, James Johnson, and I'm excited to have him on the show as we discuss this topic because he's somebody that I have had the privilege to see go through transitions and remain consistent and continue to work through his goals. So we are going to jump into that conversation. So James, welcome to the show. I'm going to pass it over to you. If you have anything to say, go ahead. And this is your time. Let's get it.
I want to say hello to everyone out there. My name's James. It's Giselle Johnson, sister, my whole life. Well, her whole life. I'm a little older. So, yeah, I'm ready to do it. Be consistent.
All right, let's get to it. So, James, I know that, the biggest thing is the reason why, like, I was like, you'll be perfect. You relocated, and, that is something in itself that can be kind of hard to, like, navigate. We're fresh off, December, the holidays, and people are like, okay, I gotta get back into it. But you like really relocated. So can you talk about a little bit like your life transitions and like what led to your relocation? Like what led to them?
Yeah. So, in terms of the relocation, it was big. I moved from Washington State to South Carolina. I lived in the Seattle area, now I'm in Charleston area. So, really, it's been a lifelong dream. The viewers may not know, but originally our family is from South Carolina. And I moved away young, around 10 or 11 years old, and always wanted to come back. It took me a few decades, but I got here. And I think what really ramped things up and got me to this point where we're here today is being consistent with my wife and kind of our plan and the, ideas and goals that we had in the life that we wanted to build for ourselves and, chipping at it one day at a time, kind of making efforts that led us here ultimately. And, there was influences along the way, but the main thing was having a goal of where we wanted to get to.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we've talked about that on the show of how just really setting the goal is the biggest point. And I thank you for highlighting that because essentially, like when you don't have a plan or a goal, like you don't know what and how to stay consistent.
I always knew I wanted to come back south since I pretty much graduated high school, and I knew it was going to take a push to get me there. I'm really good at responding to deadlines or like actions, but sometimes setting things up for myself and forcing the issue doesn't always happen. So I give that example because I thought it was going to be college that brought me back. And what happened is I ended up getting into good schools in Washington, and I, kind of said, hey, if I don't get into this school in Washington, then I'll move back south. And funny enough, I didn't get into the schools in the South, but I did in Washington, and they were at the schools I was applying to, those were better schools. So hey, it made sense.
Mhm.
So I did that. But the goal, was always to come back. And then fast forward, I meet my wife. We decide that, we want to be back south to be close to our family and to kind of change up the lifestyle that we have in the Seattle area. And we really looked at Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. And it was really like a 2-year process. I think it consisted of a lot of conversations between us, talking about what we wanted both for ourselves, professionally, personally, but also our kids and like kind of how we wanted them to grow up and things we wanted them to experience. And once we outlined that, we kind of worked through the process.
Okay. So I got a follow-up question to that. So in this, did you find that, did you have to reevaluate your goals and like how did you approach them? Yes, you wanted to come to South and you defined that, right? But did you have like what did reevaluation look like if you had to do that?
Yeah, it's kind of like cooking something for the first time, or if you
Mm,
get a recipe, you follow it as a guide and then you make it work for you.
mhm.
And, it really was a circular process in that we started with saying, hey, we're going to move to Charleston. And then for me, I always thought I was going to go to Atlanta. I did internships out there, saw family out there. I was like, okay, this is a good fit because it was just bigger and it seemed like there was more opportunity. Then COVID hit and we ended up going down to Florida, down to like Fort Lauderdale area. And we really liked that just because of, you know, the culture, the weather, the change of pace of everything was just beautiful. It's a vibrant, area. But what we learned, we hit it Florida hard in the sense of traveling and kept going back. And like, we really like this. But what we learned was that we wouldn't be as close to family as we wanted. And that was a big part of it. It's one thing to be able to drive to see someone, but if you're in South Florida, getting up to Georgia or South Carolina, that's at least 8 hours. And like, how often are you going to do that? Right. Or you got to hop on a flight and then we might as well stay in Washington. So we had to keep working through that.
Okay. And that seemed like it might have been difficult in some areas. How did you push through that? Like, because when people think about consistency, that's the biggest thing that I've kind of seen. And we're talking about transition, right? There's going to be difficulties in it, anything that you're trying to stay consistent in, and especially in a transition. How do you push through the difficult moments? Like, how do you do that? And how did you?
Yeah, there's willpower, there's faith, and there's process. And the process was really testing it. What was important for us on the trips was seeing how it felt and how it worked out for us, bringing our whole family down, experiencing the different areas and really, seeing the vibe that we got from that. And then once we got to go back to our normal situation in Seattle, reflecting upon that and kind of really taking, not even detailed notes, but taking an assessment of what we went through, what we wanted, where we're going. And we had to keep doing it over and over again. So we took multiple trips and tested like the theory, like, does this work? Okay, reevaluate, try this, does this work? And then really sitting down and having a lot of discussions. And then what really got it there was a point in time where we said, hey, if we're not going to do it, or excuse me, we said, hey, if not now, then when? Like, we set a date and said, okay, now we got to go. And for me, that worked.
Right.
I had a deadline. I had to do it. So I had to, start working through it and making stuff happen. And that was the big thing, like, to start. I had to start doing something.
Yeah, and that's amazing that you said it because I've talked on the show in previous episodes about how, when you make that goal, there's going to be times where it's going to be difficult, but you got to do what's best for you. You talked about like how you're a deadline person, and it seems like when it was difficult, that deadline just kept you accountable. And, I've talked about before, like, just inconsistency, you got to do what's realistic for you. And that's the biggest thing that, want to highlight about consistency. Transition is hard. Like, all three of us, me, you, and Gabby, have all relocated. Me and Gabby more than you, but we have we've found our way to where, like, we've had to kind of be a different type of person, like adjust, if that makes sense. And the adjustment isn't always easy. So every time that Gabby and we've relocated, we've kind of like learned something about ourselves. So I kind of want to ask you, it's been a couple of months, not even 6 months since you've relocated, but what have you learned about yourself in handling this transition?
Knowing that I could do it. So I've actually, like, I moved around a lot, whether it be across country and state. So I've moved a lot, and it's always a process. I think what I've learned is knowing that the faith and understanding that you'll be okay and that it's really just a growing period. But ultimately with this move, I know that I'm happy. So I know that it was the right thing for me. And I just really had to kind of overcome that fear of making the step or, the effort to change. I was really just sticking through it and, being consistent with effort was really the biggest thing for me. Was that, even on the days where it's like, hey, it may be hard, but I'm going to try to make the best of my situation, or I know I'm doing something for, the embetterment of me. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and I really want to highlight that because regardless of what it is, whether it's a new move, a new job, or a new habit that you're creating, like, it's gonna be hard. And I appreciate you saying that, James, because it's just like, it's oftentimes like when we're trying something new, like, we don't like the feeling, but it's just like when you have it's the effort, like you said, like that you have to remind yourself, like, all right, this is hard. I got to keep doing it. I got this goal. I want to do this. So I really wanted to just like really highlight that piece because, transition is hard. Like whether you are creating new habits in this time or somebody's creating new habits in this time or wanting to start a new life, or you might have this dream to move just like James did. And it might seem like impossible in the moment because you haven't done it, but that goal is where you start and you got to do what's best for you. James, he set deadlines. Him and his wife, they had conversations. They knew what was going to make them happy. So you got to ask yourself, at the end of the day, I know that this consistency is hard. This transition doesn't make sense, but how can I keep going? That's something that I just wanted to say. What are some tips?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest is to give yourself grace in your efforts and understand that, your 100% may not look the same every day. And what I mean by that is what you have available to give in terms of effort is going to look different based on your life circumstance on every day.
Right.
But like, maybe if you're working towards a goal, maybe today, you have an hour, but tomorrow you only have 5 minutes, or percentage wise, like you can give 100% of your attention to whatever the goal is on one day and a different amount the next day. Give what you can, because it's those little things, like those little wins stack up over time, or those little efforts stack up over time to make a big thing happen. And then you get to look back and then be like, I'm glad I did that, right? And it always like feels better knowing that you did something and tried than sitting there with regret and wonder of like what would have happened if I did or if I tried.
Thank you, James. That's really big, giving yourself grace. And I really like the piece where you said that, before I get into my next question, the piece that you said, whether you have an hour today and maybe 5 minutes tomorrow, but it all adds up. That makes so much sense because it's just like, my viewers that have been here, you've seen me do the Honor Journey, 12 days of Honor Journey, which is a recap. And, I've been uploading content, but that was my way to stay consistent, whether it was fresh content or previous scene content. But that's really what the whole thing about consistency is, like just doing little steps to get to the goal that you're trying to reach, along with just remembering, and like we talked about in previous episodes, being realistic to what you can do. And that's kind of what you just said. So I appreciate you saying that, James. I want to ask you, and it could be about the move or it could just be in general, James. But, do you have any specific practices or habits that help you navigate through tough moments?
A reflection. I'm the type of person that I need moments of quiet and even like low to no light, so I can just decompress.
Mm,
So, I try to practice that on a daily basis where I just have those moments where I can reflect, and more so lately give praise, just, and thanks. 'Cause I feel very fortunate, even though my life circumstance may be different than it was before, or there may
mm-hmm.
be challenges at different spots. I'm overall thankful for everything that I have. And so I just try to, change my own mindset with that. One kind of thing I started saying, a mantra is, every day and everywhere I'm getting better. And I repeat that to myself daily, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
helps. It helps,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you can change.
You're right. And I like that, James. That's a practice. I like that practice. And, I encourage, viewers that are listening, that's James's. Something that I do, yes, I keep going, but something that I do that helps me navigate tough moments is I really like, similar to what I have to have quiet. And I know, as your little sister, you probably don't believe that, but I do have to have quiet. I just sit there and I write. I'm a big writer. So I just like write out things. I do gratitude. So when I'm confused, I will take, either it might be 7 days, it might be 14 days, it might be 30 days. But I just say, okay, I am going to take 30 days and write three things that I'm grateful for every day. And that kind of helps me reflect. Mine is a little bit of a longer process, James, though, that you do when you're in those tough moments. But what about when you're overwhelmed? But how did you stay motivated, like when it might have been overwhelming?
yeah, I understood my why, meaning like WHY, like why am I doing this?
Mm,
And that helped me go because a lot of it is for my family.
mm.
And, you know, it starts with the immediate people in my house, my wife and kids, and it branches out from there. But, you know, I had a goal. I, you know, wanted to pull this thing off and keep everybody happy, including me, right? And that's an important thing. It's like, don't forget yourself. You don't need to kill yourself in the process. It may be hard, but you shouldn't like, you know, just destroy yourself trying to achieve something. And honestly, talking it out with people and different people. I don't think you can just have one person as counsel and not even a specific counselor, but you know, you have different friends and relationships that provide you with different things. So you don't go to everybody for everything like people have. You know, they're good at different things, right? And really learn to utilize the resources you have, whether it be people or otherwise.
That's amazing. And just seeing it all come to works has just been amazing too, you know. Being here based in South Carolina and hearing you talk about it. Oh, it's just like that's amazing and it's encouraging. And that's one of the biggest reasons I was like, you know, James, you would be perfect for this episode because it's just like this wasn't a one-time event. And I think that's what sometimes people forget about consistency. I think when people reach their goals, they just stop. And I wanted to have this conversation because, you know, whether it's a transition or whether it's, you know, trying to, just in general, transitions can feel like, okay, I've made the move and now I can stop doing what I was doing. But like you highlighted, you know, you highlighting, you know, you did it for your family, but you did it for yourself too. So just remembering that is important. And, you know, speaking of that, as we wrap up, you know, you are important. And that's what I want. We're going to move into next month talking about, which is self love. And really just, you know, not the casual or the what self love is like going doing this, but really loving yourself. And I think self love plays a part in being consistent. So next month on the episode, we are going to be talking about self love as we go into Love Month. Just want to say thank you so much, James. This was a great conversation. Just hearing how you navigated being consistent in your transition. I really appreciate it. Continue to do what you're doing. Continue to be the great father, the great husband and big brother that you are because you're doing a great job. And I just want to thank you so much for being a part of the show. And to my viewers, if you have not yet hit the like button, go ahead, leave a comment. I really want to know something. Tell us, James and I both shared with us, but how do you stay motivated when, you know, consistency becomes overwhelming or you're going through a transition? How do you stay motivated? But until next time, you know how I always like to say it, peace, love, and happiness. All right, James.